Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
Goodbye, Russia. Hello, America. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? By Janet S. Kleinman. Janet is an author of this book, and we met many months ago and had a wonderful relationship. And just recently, Janet and I kind of got to talking, and it seemed that we had a similar situation where my husband passed away January the 25th. And when did your husband pass away?
February 7th.
So here are two ladies who have a lot going for them, and yet we miss our partners, our spouses, our love of our life. How long were you married?
60 years.
Oh, you beat me. See, I was married, I say only 43, but for me, that was amazing. And people say, 43 years, that's so unusual. And now you're telling me 60?
60. 60.
Oh, my heavens. So I guess I was just discussing this with our board operator, Rich, and asking him, what is that like for everybody? I guess everyone looks at losing this spouse differently. What is it like for you? And we'll talk about your book in a minute, but since I just started this, we'll do that.
There's a loneliness that's left. And if the loneliness is not based on yesterday or the day before because it's been lonely with him still alive because he was very ill, it's a loneliness that goes back 60 years. And all of a sudden, all the nice things you did, all the things you did together as a family or alone or on a vacation, or somebody says something, and all of a sudden, you miss somebody who, even though it may have been time for him to pass.
Yeah, so it's missing. Now, do you have family here?
No,
Other
not
family?
in Florida. I have a wonderful son in California and a daughter in North Carolina who took over when Bert died. They took over certain responsibilities for me, and they were wonderful. But I think and he didn't want to die. He died, and I took a plane to New York to have him buried, and nature interfered. They had a snowstorm, and all the cemeteries in New York were closed. So I said, Bert doesn't want to die. We had to bury him the next day in frozen ground. And the ground was so frozen, I figured they'd never dig the hole, but they did. And we buried him, and we left him there in the ice cold. And we tried to get back to Florida, and that wasn't fun either. LaGuardia Airport took 2 hours to get the plane on, and if we had changed our flights, JetBlue said we wouldn't get home till Sunday, and this was Friday. So
you went through a big thing about he passes, but then getting everything together like that was even more of I didn't have that situation.
I shouldn't have. We had everything organized, just like you did, only in New York. I flew up.
No, but I didn't even have what you had. I will tell you, this is more even strange. Bill and I we don't believe in burying ourselves or anything like that. What we were doing was we have signed up to give our bodies to science. Mm-hmm. And Science Care has been a wonderful organization, and that was all set. And so when my husband passed away, I left the hospital, and I gave them the number to call, and the doctors loved it. They said, we don't have enough cadavers. We're so glad you're doing this. In the middle of the night, I get a call, and it said, your husband has this infection in his body, and they won't take him. And I knew because he was suffering from some of this when he was in the hospital and the rehab center. So all of a sudden I had to think of something quickly. So I went to a cremation service and had him cremated. I did not want the ashes. I don't care about any of that. I didn't believe in that. So now I have these ashes. What am I going to do with the ashes? And my cousin was staying with me, and she said, well, you lived for 28 years over in Ocean Ridge, and they took the house down, and it's just a big empty lot. Why don't you spread it there? Because we had a wonderful life there. So in the middle of the night, we snuck over there because it's a little community. I don't want them to see me putting, and we sprinkled the ashes on our wonderful property that we had. And that's where he is. So, when you're telling me about the ice, I'm telling you about this. So because I didn't really want to make a big deal of it, but it turns out it became a little bit of a deal there.
Well, ours did too.
Yeah.
Because we had 14 people. Some of them were his nephews who flew there in that weather, okay? And we don't know what to do with them. But we were in New York, and we had a young rabbi who used to be a friend of my children, and he called the old temple, and they let us have a small service the day before we could bury him because you couldn't bring him into the synagogue.
Right.
So, and how do we get him there? Well, we called Uber and we got a...
Oh, no, this is too funny.
We got a long limo and a wonderful Russian driver, don't worry. And they don't plow Riverdale, like they do New York City. And he got us over the humps of snow to the synagogue.
Oh, and this is hysterical.
And the new rabbi who hardly knew us and our friend, we did a little ceremony. I spoke, my son spoke, and then what do you do with them usually? So the local deli is now listed in New York Magazine as the best deli in New York. And it's right across the street from Bert's office. There's Bert's office, and here's the deli. We made reservations for 14. And we went there for lunch.
You said Bert's office.
Oh, Bert practiced. Bert was an optometrist in Riverdale, and his office was on 235th Street on the north side. The deli's on the south side. And we made reservations, and no one was there but us because the weather was like 0 degrees. And we had lunch and could look at his office the whole time. So that was step 2.
Right.
And then of course, people had to go home. They couldn't wait for the funeral. So the funeral really was just an internment. My son, my daughter, and I, the next day in 0 temperature, and I said, he still doesn't want to go. I hope they get this cold, Doug. It was so cold. But they did. They did.
Well, you see, so these were unusual circumstances, and it's nice to share them. And of course, I, as you, have many times when you go home at night. Of course, I work now, and so I'm busy, and all of a sudden, I have to go home. And, of course, I have this wonderful dog, but we live in an apartment that's so filled with everything. I guess it was for you, too. Filled with him. Everything. Everything is there.
It's all there. And even though we only came 11 years ago, 11 years is a lot. Plus, we brought things with us. And it's full of stuff. It's full of him. And I was emptying some drawers, and what did I find? I think it's called an oscilloscope, an instrument he wouldn't part with for examining eyes.
Oh, my.
And I know what I have to do with it. There is a place in Palm Beach that only takes stuff like that. And the last time I had an instrument for him for something else, it was worth $3,000 and Medicare wouldn't take it back. He used it once. So I'm going to go up there because we have on Boynton Beach a very good place that treats indigents, but they don't take this big stuff. So they sent me there. So I know I have to do that. I can't let that go to waste.
No. But I've been wearing my husband's clothing. This is one of his things.
That's a gorgeous sweater. Right? I've been looking at it since I came.
This was his. And his shirts fit me perfectly. I'm wearing a lot of things, and looks like was this his?
No, this was mine. I've been giving his stuff. We're not supposed to keep someone who dyes shoes religiously. I mean, even if you're not. So the first thing I did was give his shoes to some of the men who work around my condo. They've been very nice to me. I have to say that I don't know if I should mention the condo, but the staff at that condo has been marvelous.
See, but I'm not giving any of his things away yet. Everything's in the closet. Even he had his desk and a computer we have a large bedroom in that corner. Even, see now, and he was talking about building tiny houses, so
I remember that.
Yeah, all the little drawings he had, and he has this, all the things are there. So I've left that.
You're not ready.
No, and I'm not, that's right. I don't need to do that. It's in a corner anyway, and I haven't really done anything about that, but it's amazing how I have a lot of family here. So, see, I've been more fortunate than you in that sense. In fact, coming today is one of my cousins, a fabulous cousin I have who lives in Miami Beach, and she's going to come up and we're going to spend the weekend. But
Good.
But there are times, when there's just nobody there. And it is what you were saying. It's like, is anybody home? Where are you? How come you're not here?
Well,
right?
Also, I had a schedule. I saw him, was advised not to go every day, every other day. Otherwise, and don't go see him when he was in a facility before he died, at the same time.
Because they would not let you stay?
No, I could stay. I could stay all day. But I came and I went because he was in a facility for people that needed help. And so if I came on Monday, I wouldn't come till Wednesday so that he wouldn't expect me every moment. They didn't want that. And so I did that. But now when he dies, what do I do today? In fact, the day that he died, I was on his way to see him. And I'm driving the car, and I am 3 blocks from Homewood Road, and the phone rings. And it's my daughter in North Carolina, and she says, "Mom, what are you doing?" I said, I'm driving today to see Daddy. She said, "Well, get off the road." I said, "What do you mean, get off the road?" I'm 3 blocks away. She says, "Get off the road," and I knew.
Well, they called her.
They couldn't reach me, so they called her, and he had died 20 minutes earlier. And I went there, and he looked like Bert. He had lost a lot of weight.
Right,
and
they all look like...
Yeah, and his mouth was crooked, and I wanted to straighten his mouth.
Oh, my
And
heavens.
it wouldn't straighten.
Oh, my heavens.
And the hospice nurse came in, and she did it.
Helped you do it. My husband was not supposed to be dying, though. He had an operation, was very successful, and other things happened. And so I went to the hospital and slept there night and day. I slept in the rehab center 2 months, and I was there all the time. I never left his side because he was supposed to come home. He wasn't in the situation that you had, but things just kept getting worse and worse and worse. So it was a shock for me that he died.
See, it wasn't for me.
I know that. And so that makes that's a little different. But still, there are people who, even when someone knows they're dying and they're in hospice, it's still the same. It's still the same when you come home and someone's not there that you had for a long time.
You're also,
right?
Yes, and in addition to which, the responsibilities of things we have to do, like you had to find a place to put his ashes.
Exactly, right.
We had to wait for a day to bury him because they couldn't do.
Right.
These are things you never dreamt of.
Right.
You never.
So it's, and I know we started out because I wanted to share this with our listeners because they do know about me, and I found that was one reason I thought it was so perfect to talk to you ahead of time besides your book because, your book was really a wonderful book, this Goodbye Russia, Hello America by Janet Kleinman. And so life goes on, and whether you're an author and you're writing all the time or you're living all the time, it's just part of what goes on in our lives.
But what goes on in our lives also changes what we do. I couldn't write for a while. I really couldn't. He was very sick, and I knew what the end was going to be. And I could send you an email, and I could, do something on the computer, but I didn't want to write.
No, of course not.
That was the thing that helped me through the fact that he had dementia. It helped me all the time so that I could be as normal a wife as possible because I was busy, and he allowed me to be busy. And I was writing about the things I loved. So that was gone. There was no, that was gone. And I'm hoping. Then I started to write a little poetry, which I did as a kid and in high school. And I don't know what possessed me, but it got something out of my system. So now I hope I can go back to writing a novel, another novel.
It was very sweet. Yeah. Now there was another. Where's your other book? You wrote another book.
I have it.
Yeah. She brought her other book with her, and it is really when you meet people who are so intelligent and yet they're going through the same problems of everybody. Here's the Flirting with Disaster with Love and Nature, When Love and Nature Collide. And she wrote this also, and this is a little different. One is more about something that really was like a biography in a way. Partially a biography, right. Where this looks like it was strictly a novel.
It's strictly a novel, but based on the earthquake in Haiti.
Right.
That's the background. The background is real.
Right. I remember about that. So I thought it might be a fun thing for you. There was one particular poem to show that people have a lot of things in them. Besides being an author and writing that way, poetry is harder. Poetry is very harder. And the one that the one I really loved was, I thought this was so beautiful. The Day I Was Married.
Oh, that's the very last one.
I love that.
That is the
one.
Newest one. That's interesting. I will read it with pleasure.
Please do that.
It was 90 degrees at 7 o'clock. The sun had not yet set. The bride and groom were totally wet as the guests scattered beneath the trees to escape the August heat. And the river did not ripple, and the wind did not blow, as drops of perspiration ran down the Rebbe's cheek, as he licked his lips and spoke the sacred words to the bride and groom. It was 60 years ago, and still I remember. And this is exactly what...
That is so beautiful, because now that, we know what happened, and there it was, and still I remember. Well,
I can visualize where I was like it was yesterday. And there was the Hudson River flowing by, and the terrace where we were having the ceremony. And the guests had their jackets off because it was so hot. And my father said, take your jacket off to them. He says, it's okay, take your jacket off. It's too hot out here.
And so now you're single, as they say. Now
I'm
you're
single.
Right. And I was talking with Rich, our board operator, just a little bit before you came in, and he said something that people he has a cousin, and people look at you differently. Are you being looked at differently yet?
Yes, a little bit. A little bit, not a lot. I'm very, very proud, maybe too proud. So I will go anywhere myself if I have to or want to. On the other hand,
here this morning.
Yeah. Well, that was only a matter of a little bit of trepidation.
I know.
People don't ask me to join them necessarily. One or two do, but luckily I have a group of friends in Florida, close by, who I know from school. Not here. My friend Harriet, we lived on the same block. We went to the same schools. Irma and I graduated college at the same time. She's here. There are a few more. Carolyn Barron just became a widow. She was the president of the synagogue, and she's here. And they're not old. They're not old. And we do things together. We see each other. We know we're there. And the friendships that go back more than 60 years.
So they're all single.
Now they are. We're all. I joined the club. I joined the widows club. And it's amazing the amount of widows that there are here. Is it something in a woman's blood that we live longer? Or we keep them alive,
Well, but when we think about widowers, and I was talking, about with, as I said, Rich and I have been doing a lot of talking this morning, and that some men, when they lose their wives, they kill themselves. This one man killed himself, another person, killed himself by hanging and all, and so maybe there is something in a male's genes or something that he can't. Either finds a woman quickly, maybe that's why, or he just doesn't want to be alone.
And some of them are very touchy-feely. I've noticed that there are a few men that I know who'll just come over and all of a sudden they're patting you on your shoulders. And I can do without that. And I'm not rigid and I don't get angry, but I'll sort of push away. And they don't realize that I'm only lost a husband 2 months ago, and have no concept. And you see it. You see it around you. 6 months, they've got a lady friend. And they're like this. What do they know about each other? Nothing. So
they just want the comfort of another person.
No, they want the comfort of a woman. There's something about a woman that when you pat a woman, it's a little different, I guess, than if one man pats another man, to some of us anyway.
Sure.
So that's what I notice, and I notice that I have to be creative for myself as far as doing things. Otherwise, life is very, dull. And I am, and that's one of the things I get from, I belong to a synagogue. I run the book club for them. But That's
book club. That's only appropriate.
Isn't it? And I inherited that. The lady who ran it got old and a little sick, and a few times she said, Janet, will you take it for me this week and next week? And suddenly she disappeared and moved to where her children were, and I got left with it.
Sure.
But okay.
And and I think we have talked about some of the things I want to, but I don't want to not talk about your book a minute, because I want people to know about your book. This Goodbye Russia, Hello America is really its immigrant story. It's an immigrant story, but yet there's a lot in this that I think anybody, especially if you grew up in New York, would love this book, because there's so much, isn't there, of what...
Yeah.
So I would just say it's a wonderful book, and the way that you can buy the book is very inexpensive. I mean, for $14.95 you can just go to the movies and it's over, but this book will keep you going for a few days, I think, unless you read it night and day. It's something you want to do. I think you'll... Actually, Janet Kleinman's, it says on the back, is a mother, grandmother, the daughter of immigrants. She's also the author of Flirting with Disaster, When Love and Nature Collide, which is the story happens in Haiti. And in September 2013, she was given a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Brooklyn College Alumni Association. And, of course, she lives here in Florida now. So if you want to buy this book, they can go to Amazon, can't they?
Amazon, Barnes & Nobles.
Okay. Goodbye, Russia. Hello, America. It's really appropriate now with the immigration problem.
Can I add one little thing?
Please.
This is for you. I went to a Penn Women Luncheon, and at the table was, and who am I? I introduced myself. And one young woman said, I heard you. And I said, where did you hear me? On ANITA FINLEY's program, I go jogging in the morning. And she said, I remember the story. So I have to share that with you before you say goodbye to me.
I was just saying that this just happened recently, that someone invited me for dinner, one of the clubs here in Boca, and she said, and I'd like to invite this couple, because this couple said, when she heard that I was going to invite you, she said, oh, I listened to her on the radio. So we never know when people say, when we go to get advertisers, well, who listens? I said, I can't give you perspective or exactly, but I know people listening. So that's a good story. That's a good way to end this, isn't it? Well, I think we're going to actually go off for breakfast, because Janet and I have a lot to talk about. We're both busy women, so it's not like some of the widows who really now are so alone. They don't really know what to do with their life, and some of them don't even want to go out with their friends. I don't know why that happens, but you're very good at that. I think we'll talk about it. And I thank everybody for listening. I know we've been doing a lot of this, and of course in our magazine, I've been putting all sorts of things. And in fact, you have been a caregiver, and I'm now writing a caregiver column every month, because people don't understand how important being a caregiver is and how necessary it is. And I started doing that and trying to teach people how to be a good caregiver, to know what to look for, what not to do. So it's a new way for me, even though I've done it as a gerontologist. It's affected me so personally now, and so I can give it more breadth, more truth in the sense of what I know. So, Janet, I know that you're going to write something else. I have no idea. Do you have something in mind quickly?
No, not yet. Not yet. I have a few things brewing.
You like novels, though, don't you?
I like a novel. I did write a short story that it's called Neighbors, and I haven't read it yet. It's very short. I want to read it first to the group that I attend. And the other story is called Death, and
Really?
Yeah.
It's called Death. Interesting.
Yeah, but that's dark. But the Neighbors is kind of neat. It's a beginning, and right now it's meant to be a short story.
Well, we had a fantastic celebration to send my husband off at the Wick Theater, and my husband was always into a lot of adventures, doing things. So I know he's somewhere on a new adventure without me, unfortunately, but I know he's somewhere out there, and so that's what I live with.
Well, I'll tell you what I see. I see Bert walking again on a blue cloud, on a cloud up there in heaven, and saying, I told you I would walk again.
No, that's fabulous. Well, we thank you very much.